everyone, I'm Jan from The Sill, and I'm super excited to be here today for our first show on Hometalk, the world's biggest DIY community for home and garden. Today we're going to make terrariums, super classical stuff, very easy too. I'm sure you've seen one in your local nurseries or your supermarket, so we're going to build one together today. If you're tuning in at 7 p.m. October 8th, Tuesday, I'm going to be in the comment section with you, so if you have any questions or opinions, please leave a comment. We'll be right there to answer all of your questions as well. So let's dive right in. I want to talk first about the materials. It's very simple. We're going to use a transparent container. So right here I have a glass bowl that, basically a fish bowl, but it's really nice, simple shape that is symmetrical that, I'll show you how to arrange things, and I think this is a great example, but essentially you can get any container that is transparent to let light through. And then we have our potting mix, obviously to have our plants have in. Today we're doing a succulent selection, so we're using cacti mix. This is the Sill's cacti mix that has more gravel, more sand, a lot of compost for nutrients. It's a really nice organic stuff. Some sand for decoration at the end, not particularly functional. And then lava rocks that will be added to the bottom of the terrarium for drainage, which I'll get into in a bit. And obviously our cactus and succulent selection. So yeah, let's start from the bottom up and I'll explain what's going on. So first, we're gonna use some lava rocks. Lava rocks are porous materials from volcano sites. Basically what they do is we're creating physically some extra space for water to drain if there's any extra, because you don't want your plant's roots to sit in water. That's how you get your roots to rot. And so I'm actually going to add a little bit more today because we're doing a succulent selection. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but succulents are basically plants that literally means they hold water in their leaves, just like a camelback. So they're from deserts, they're from very dry regions, and so they're not really familiar with having water around. So I'm gonna add a little bit more lava rocks to make sure that they really don't sit in water. So that's pretty much all you need, or less, right? And then I'm going to add cacti mix. You can definitely use regular potting mix for cactus and succulents. It's not super critical, because if they are set in the right conditions, they will dry out fast enough that it won't cause a huge problem. But if you have access to cacti mix, it's great to use it. The function of cacti mix, the difference between cacti mix and potting mix, I'm sure a lot of you guys might be curious about, is it drains faster and it dries faster because of the gravel and the extra sand. There's more air circulation, and basically it's a wet rock, so it just dries really quickly, compared to potting mix that has materials in it that holds water longer. Cool, so let's see. Before we start, let me talk a little bit of designing a terrarium. Obviously we can do a flat landscape, but here's the thing. What I really love about terrariums is that it's basically mini landscaping. So you want to be really creative. Between you and me, I've never been to the desert. So if I make some kind of arid landscape, it's probably not going to be accurate. But you know what? This is my world. That's the point of a terrarium. You're going to get creative, have fun with it. I think what I'll do is kind of a slope. I'll keep it a little simple, and I think this will make sense for you guys too, so you can see more. Great, actually slope is a great example to tell you something about the soil level. So there's definitely a green zone for how much soil you want to put in. Right here at the bottom, I'm really close to the lava rocks. Basically, actually, I only have a quarter of a soil depth. It's not going to be practical, it's not going to be possible actually to pot a plant in soil that's shallower than their roots. So in this case, since I'm making a slope, I think the back is going to be much higher for the sake of the front. Obviously, how high can you go? You can go as high as you want. I mean, the thing is, planters are basically any container you put a plant in. So if I filled it all the way up, this would have been just a transparent planter. But for the sake of a terrarium, because the idea is to keep things inside the terrarium, we won't go too high in the back so that the plant doesn't really bump into the glass. Which, nothing wrong about bumping into the glass. Nothing's wrong here, but just to keep things even. All right, so I'm gonna lightly pack it down. You can see it's very gravelly and just shifting around like sand. Awesome. So let's go right over to the plants. So I mentioned briefly about succulents being, water holding plants because they're from deserts. They reserve water for dry periods. So one of the things about succulents that are interesting is also they have really shallow roots because they grow in sand basically. There's not much for them to dig in for, and so they only grow shallow roots to anchor themselves just for that, and then just spread out a little wide to grab as much water when it does rain. But before we start terrarium, one of my pro tips is to basically practice the classic mise en place. You want to prep all of the plants before you get in because it's just a hassle to go back and forth, make your life easier. And let me give you a little tips on how to take a plant out of a grow pot, right? I know some of you guys are a little scared of how hard can you treat your plants or manhandle them. Basically what I'm doing is I'm gonna squeeze these soft grow pots slightly and then just pull it right out. It should fall right out. I want to show you an example of why it's important to squeeze it. Definitely snake plant will have an example. So basically what happens when plants are grown in grow pots and they're supplied to you guys when you purchase it is they're grown into this grow pot unit size. And so in most cases, these are babies, so the root situations vary a lot, but most cases they're going to be overgrown. This is what we call root bound. So they're bound to the pot that they were grown in, and obviously because they hit a wall, they're just going sideline, right? The objective of loosening a root from a grow pot is to loosen this pattern because plants grow in a habit, and since they've recognized the environment as such, we need to tell them no, it's okay. You can spread out. I'm gonna put you in a bigger room so you can start spreading out so they don't strangle themselves. So the only objective really is to loosen this mold, right? Practically, that's enough. You see that I kind of loosened up the roots. They're kind of splaying out a little bit more. So now this root can just go down or sideways wherever it wants to go. There's no limitations anymore. So that's all you have to do really. You don't have to take out the old soil. There's plenty of new soil going in. So in this case, and why I like to massage the plant before I take it out is because if you use your fingers, I find it personally oftentimes your fingers can kind of rip the roots a little bit, which is, it's better not to. It's not critical, but it's better not to. And I think if I use the pot to loosen it instead, it's kind of a more gentler way to loosen the soil. So here we go. Let me get all of them out. And you can see I'm just grabbing this cactus. So I want to tell you guys also this funny thing about cactus. A lot of them actually don't have very aggressive thorns. I'm just lightly holding it, and it takes a little bit of practice or experience of getting poked. But these guys I know are going to be fine to hold. This guy, a bunny ear cactus, is not that case. They have very fine thorns that will lodge into your skin. It's very painful. Never touch these guys with your bare hand. I do not recommend that. So in this case, a quick way to deal with any abrasive surfaces on plants. Here we just fold up some tissue papers into a thick pad, and I can just basically grab it like this. Sometimes we use our leftover foam, and it's really crazy. You'll see kind of the hairy thorns lodge into the foam, but great. Great thing about succulents and cactus is also they are already potted in very sandy soil, and so it's really easy to break the roots because everything is just falling apart. All right, let's finish this up really quick. Oop, I'm so sorry. All right, awesome. So we got the plants ready. Actually, let me move this guy to the side so it doesn't get too dusty. Put it away. Fun fact, grow pots are not always recyclable, so you should always check in with your state law or city law. In New York, it's recyclable, so we'll recycle these, but some parts of the country, I know it's not. All right, and then let's go straight into the terrarium. So in the same idea that you want to be more prepared before you engage into the terrarium setup, I'm gonna roughly think about what design I want to present before I throw them in, because they've just been uprooted, and so in that process there are inevitable damage to the roots. it's once in a while, it's totally fine. They'll regrow it, they can recover from that. But it doesn't mean that we should repot it multiple times in one session. So I'm not going to pot these guys really until I'm fairly sure I want them there. So I don't have to rip them out again. So what I'm going to do is basically, I'm gonna put some more cactus here. I'm gonna make some divots. This is like basically, when you throw a seed into soil, we're just gonna dig in some holes. Cacti mix definitely doesn't hold shape because it's just basically sand and rocks. But I can make an effort. And I think what I'll do is, here's some landscaping ideas. You wanna think about texture, colors, and height. So what's the growth pattern? Because just like landscaping in real life, landscaping is a little bit of a long-term game. You wanna kind of predict where they grow, how they grow, because they will grow. And immediately it might look good, but if you don't consider how they grow, it might get really, unpredictable, let's say. There's nothing wrong with how they grow, right? But, it might not be what you imagined. And so in this case, let me tell you a little bit about the plants. This is a cylindrical sansevieria. It's also called Mikado, very cute. It's a petite snake plant that won't really get much bigger than this compared to your massive snake plants that grows 6-8 feet tall. So these guys are definitely a height, definitely more rigid. It won't change its shape much, slow growing. We have Panda Plants. This is a calancho, commonly known as a panda plant. It has beautiful rusted edges and is very soft. It has this hair on the surface that's really nice and reflects light in this kind of fuzzy way. It's really beautiful. And this is kind of the fun ways of contrasting texture. So where here you have that kind of like fuzziness, here sansevierias are classically has a kind of a matte wax surface to it. And then we have our classic succulents, echeverias, different kinds. This black prince, I'm not 100% sure. There's a couple black kinds that all look the same. And then these are different kinds of echeverias. This one right now is a little leggy. I think I might pass on this one. We'll rehabilitate this one. And then really nice, one of the hardiest succulents out there, Haworthias. This is a zebra Haworthia because of the white stripes. Very interesting texture, very interesting shape. So these are the more rosetted shapes that will grow within this pattern that will stay hopefully compact if it gets enough light. These guys are going to, the calancho is going to branch out more. And then our cute cactuses. These are obviously a little bit different in their shapes. Cactus are very slow growing, so in the cactus case, you can definitely rely on them of not like growing out of control for you in terms of what to expect in their growth. So landscaping, because I'm working for you guys today, I'm going to focus on one-sided view. And so I think in that case, I'm going to put maybe one tall one like in this corner, some tall ones in the back as kind of a hedge, a backdrop, and then kind of stack the shorter ones from the front backwards so that we are able to look at all the plants at once. I think that's my idea tonight. Some fun, I teach a couple terrarium workshops here and there, and one of my favorite terrarium that ever happened before was actually a Zen Garden Terrarium, which to me was, obviously they have so much self-control. They put like 2 plants in the terrarium and I'm like, I want to put 10 inside. And I kind of tell you that because I want you to be really creative. There's no need to really overcrowd the terrarium. Just have fun, be creative, think about a landscape that you love, and you don't have to fill it all the way up. So I started with this guy. I didn't really pot this guy. Potting would imply that I'm really putting the soil in and pressing it in. So I'm just lightly rolling the gravel on top around it just to keep it straight. And then here, let's start a divot. I'm just literally making a hole and I'm just gonna drop it right in. Like that. See, I'm not really putting it in. I'm just seeing how it would work if I put it there. Because succulents have really short roots, it's easy to keep them like crowded. In tropical plant cases, you don't really want to do that. All right, so while I put these in, let me tell you a little bit about the care for them. Succulents, because I told you, I'm sorry to keep reiterating, but they're from deserty, arid, dry environments, and the best way to take care of plants is to focus on where they really come from, because they're evolved to a particular environment, and just recreating that environment is really the A goal to plant care. That's really all it is. And so in this case, because they're all from very arid, dry, hot areas, you want to give them as much sun as possible, right? You literally can't give them enough sun. And the more sun you give them, the healthier they will be, basically. And you water it infrequently. So this is a misconception about a lot of dry plants that don't really need a lot of water. It doesn't mean that you should water just a little bit. It means that you want to water them. When you water them, you want to soak them through. Like you want to give them that heavy rainfall in the desert once in a while. And if you really soak that soil, they're going to use all that water, and then you let it dry out, stay dry, just like a desert for a couple of weeks, and then you can water it again. And that's really how you take care of them. Just think about that, how that environment, the weather is really like that for them.
If you have any comments, be sure to have any questions. Be sure to
let me know if I'm doing a terrible job. You know, maybe it's a little crowded. I mean, we'll see. Let me adjust things around. If you have any more questions about plants, please leave in the comments any plant questions. That's really what we're most passionate about, answering plant questions. And all of these mini plants are available on our website as well. So if you want to make a terrarium, you can always get our cacti mix, our sand, our lava rocks, the plants, they should be available. Cool, let me just throw in one more 2 cactus. So I'm getting a little too crowded, and that's not always the best thing because it might get a little tricky. I'm gonna actually take this guy out, and I think I'll just keep kind of a cactus corner here. Get the tab. Ow, I just poked myself, but that's okay. Cool. Okay, it's all toppled over, that's okay. And I'm just thinking, let me just look at it on my side. Yeah, well this guy's gonna peek out a little, but I kind of like the way these guys are peeking out. Because we kind of have like the inside and then the more like taller ones poking out, breaking the fourth wall. Yeah, I think I really like this. So this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take it all out because, especially with the cactus, I'm not digging my hand in there to try to work on things. So the best way to work with terrarium bowls like this is to work outside in, because when things are in the center, it's really hard to get your hand into the corners. So let me take these guys out and let's start potting. So here's a tip on potting them. Basically we're doing the same thing where I make a divot, and then I'm going to, get them in deep enough that they're sitting level to the top soil. And then basically I'm pushing in all that soil I pushed away and lightly put it around and tap it. Another way I like to do it is make a fork with my finger like this, and I go around the base and I press around it. This way you can make sure at least the soil around the plant is securely pressed in so they don't really wiggle. Echeverias is much easier to just plop them in because they are flat, so they're not going to topple over at all actually. But it's better safe than sorry. And then I'll grab another one, and I'm going to just lightly dig into the side here. There's a pro and con to cacti mix. The pro is definitely that, we lost a little leaf here. But you know what, the fun thing about succulents is that they grow from leaves. So I'm gonna actually just put this in this corner here, and maybe it will grow a baby, which would be really fun. So I'm just gonna push this in. Same thing, I'm gonna lightly go into the underside around the neck and just press in. This is totally fine. Succulents drop their leaves all the time. That's how they basically seed themselves into the soil. And then go right here. I will also use my finger underneath to dig in a little and then lightly lodge it in. Level to the soil, press around. Awesome. Do you guys have any tips about potting? I know a lot of you guys out there, garden a lot. I think I'm being really delicate in the terrarium setting just because it's really tight in here, but I would love to know what kind of tips you guys have about how to, put your plants into your soil. Or tips about how you loosen your roots too. That would be really fun to know. So I'm gonna make the last one for this Haworthia. It's very easy to do with, I was talking about the pros and cons of the cacti mix, right? The con is definitely that they just don't hold shape. So even if I make a hole, they just like cover it up. But the easy thing is that it's so easy to move them around and just like pack it down and even it out. we're not using this guy. Let's start this back corner this time. So working towards the center. I'm going to start with our bunny ear cactus. And we're going to also put this guy right in. So the tall cactus like this, it's a little trickier because there's a chance that it might topple over. When you first repot plants into new soil, they will always be unstable. And that's because you've uprooted it. Basically, they're not really holding on to the soil yet, right? It takes about like at least 2 to 3 weeks for plants to secure themselves into soil. So my goal with this guy is not to really get them super secure. I'm just focusing on making it stand for now. And then hopefully you're not planning to roll your terrarium around. But you know, once you have it standing and you let it sit, they still stay right there. And then what I love to mention in terrarium building is that not everything has to be done with hand. You can use tools. So I pull out a brush, very simple brush that you can get anywhere really. Cheap brush. It's a thick one just because I want to emulate a finger, and this is my extension. I'm just gonna use this to push the soil around to even out the back here where I can't really easily reach. Perfect. So, right, I'm just lightly dab, see if it's going to topple over from any impact, and it looks pretty stable. So I think that's gonna be fine. And then, since we're working with cactus at this point, I'm gonna try to keep my hand away a little bit. And let's use this device, back of a brush, very professional tool, and just dig in and then use this to put the soil around. Perfect, look at that. And then obviously because I messed around with there, let me do the other one and then we'll fix all of them together. I can use another tool, another professional tool, a long brush, and we'll get the third cactus in here. I don't know if you guys ever seen, like in the 90s, there were really popular closed terrariums with like antique large jars that have cork tops. And it's really funny because, you know, they have, the jars are basically, you know, the opening is this big, but then the jar goes kind of like really big and they make a terrarium side. And what they use to pot the plants in there, I swear to God, is just a dowel with a fork attached to it. And they just put it in, they just shove the plant in, ploop, drop it in, and then use this huge stick to just like move things around. It looks really hard. They make it look easy, but it's super cool. So that's kind of what I'm doing, I guess, right now. Pushing things around. I'm gonna add a little bit of soil here so they have more support around them. And then lastly, let's get this guy back up. Okay, I'm just gonna go in and touch it. Pro tip, if you get thorns lodged into your skin, don't move it around, it'll just get it right deeper into your skin. You can get some duct tape, and if you tape your skin where it's been half the thorn and just rip it out, the tape will take it out clean, which I'll do after this. Cool. What do you think? We're a little, all right. In this case, what you can do is always add. I'm going to add more just because I want this guy to really stand. And then once it's rooted, I can probably move more soil around. What do you think? Let me know. We have a little trio cactus family. I'm really happy about it. These bunny ear cactus always looks good because they're just so weird, aren't they? Cool. So let's see. The last one, we'll do a Sansevieria right here. And then actually, I'm thinking, Kaylee, do you mind grabbing me Echeveria from our corner? It's gonna be like a short, one of the short succulents. All right, I'm just gonna dig in and then move the soil back in. Awesome. So I'll just move things around, organize, and clean up. Thankfully, these guys are very stable naturally. I'm gonna try to push this in a little deeper because we want it to be level to the top. And then because, you know, I've been pushing things around and now the soil level is a little lower, so I'm gonna just grab a little bit more soil. Thank you. And let me add more here, and add more here. And lastly, I just asked our good friend Kaylee to grab another Echeveria for us because I think I just want something more here, like next to this. This Sansevieria is a little lonely. Or see, this is my problem. I was impressed with the Zen Garden because I can't stop. I just keep going. All right, actually I'm gonna do 2 more. So let's put one here because I think it's kind of awkward how the cactus is kind of out there by themselves. Let's make a little liaison between the Echeverias and the cactus. That's good enough. Echeverias are really easy to just plop right in. And then I rejected our panda plant, but actually I think I'm just gonna put it here as a friend for our panda plant. And now, honestly, I know I'm going into the sides without considering the center, but I have my tools. So I'm just gonna push things around and press this in. I'm doing it pretty gently. I know I look a little rough, but I'm doing it pretty gently so I don't damage too much roots. I'm gonna try to get these guys close. Some base leaf loss, which is okay. Like I said, succulents drop their leaves periodically. They grow from all parts of their body. I'm gonna put some more soil right there. And then I see this corner, the roots exposed because I've been pushing things around. This is what I love about cacti mix. They're just so malleable that if I just pour it in, they're just gonna like fall into the crevices and in place. All right. How's that looking? Is that all right? The cactus is going to need a little bit more work here. All right. Great. So what I want to do, another thing about plants, if any of you guys are new to plant care, don't be afraid to prune plants. This one, I'm not really liking how it's poking out like that, so I'm just gonna cut it off. It's totally fine. Really, pruning plants also, just like how you prune hedges, it helps the plant to grow more because they have to compensate for the body loss, and it helps them grow the healthier foliage. So cool. All right. We're all done. Not really. Not at all. Okay, so this is a midpoint. I am pretty happy with the arrangement. So I'm just gonna grab the brush I was mentioning, use the other end at this point, and kind of clean up a little bit. I'm not gonna go crazy because we have one more material. I don't know if you remember, but there was an extra bag of sand. So obviously when you do terrariums, you should get creative, and when you make a landscape, to me, an arid environment is sandy, and I think it really transforms the landscape. I know for a fact, actually, because we've done this before. So I'll show you. What we're going to do is just pour in sand. And using sand on top has no function. It's purely decorative in terms of, I mentioned that there's sand in the cacti mix functionally, but that's because it's mixed in. When you have it just on top, water's just gonna pour through it. And so you don't have to really worry about like how it drains. I'm not gonna go too crazy because I'm gonna push it out. And what I love about this is it gets kind of like a sandy dune feel. I guess the closest thing to kind of an arid environment that I've seen with sandy habitat is kind of like beach shores. And to me, I think it's really beautiful when you have plants kind of just like poking out of sand and doing their best. That's what I love about them. So that's what I want to do here. I'm gonna move a little bit of the sand around. I'm gonna have a little bit of the gravel kind of like mix out because I like how it looks a little bit more natural that way. Let's go around the corner. I'm gonna just throw that out to the corner. Shoosh, shoosh. What do you think? Ooh, this Echeveria is having a rough time on the top there. You know what I'm gonna do? Speaking of pruning, I'm just gonna cut this little awkward nip off. They'll basically grow from that tip again, and it will be healthier foliage, a new stem out of it. And obviously, they're pretty buried. That's kind of like how I like it. Maybe that looks a little silly to you guys. It's not a big deal if they're buried this deep. And as I water it, the sand will get pushed around. I'm gonna break that little soil ball. Just love how they're kind of embedded in the sand. And then now, now that I've poured all of the materials that I wanted to get in here, I'm going to lightly brush the plants and try to clean it up just a little bit. Get some sand inside the sand area. And then the cactus. This is, I think, my favorite part as well in making terrariums is just cleaning the plants up. It's very therapeutic. What do you guys do to calm down? This is definitely all I do all day. So what I love about my job here at the shop is just play with dirt all day, clean up plants, watch them flourish, watch people take plants happy, and see a new future. All right. Awesome. And don't forget to leave a comment if you have any questions about this terrarium building. We are right there with you. I am there with you as well, and we'll be answering questions. Awesome. So that guy's gonna stabilize. What I like to do lastly with all terrariums, actually mentioning, in relation to this guy, is to do a little shake test. So I'm just checking, kind of a ground level check. If there's an earthquake, will they survive? So that's that's secure enough, and then it'll just sit in a very sunny spot where it gets full sun exposure, and then they'll be happy. When we water containers like this, I guess that's the last tip about watering. How do you water something like this? You basically want to water a correct amount. That's not too much that will flood the soil, but not enough that it will water all of the plants. And at the soil, we recommend doing 1/4 to 1/3 of the soil amount, soil volume. And that's because that's a good water, that's a good volume of water to kind of moisten all of the soil evenly, but not flood the pot, right? Because we want to prevent that in all cases for all plants. And so in this case, it's a rough estimate. I would water probably like 2 to 3 cups of water. I'll just evenly spread it out. What's best to use is really a watering can with a long spout that you can kind of reach in close to the soil. Because if you just pour from the top, it will kind of splatter everything around. Right now, I have a huge watering can, but this will be a good demonstration for like what you could do if you don't have a fancy watering can. What I do is I slightly tilt it and I just go in like this, and I'm just going to evenly spread it out. That way all of the plants get water. I'm going to tilt it like this because I see that it's flowing to the bottom from the... I'm going to lightly just sprinkle water. Sometimes I use an actual cup, like a measuring cup, but at this point, personally, I'm kind of like in tune with how much water I put in my planters. Yeah, there you go. It's kind of nice how sand gets wet too. It's kind of doughy. Looks like vanilla. I really want a chocolate chip cookie now. All right, so I would have probably went a little bit more. And you can see the water just kind of falling straight through the sand. Awesome. If you want to keep it sandy, I know it just revealed more dirt in it, which I personally like. I think it looks more natural. If you want it to be, I would just focus on making a thicker sand layer so the soil underneath doesn't get mixed into the sand easily, which is totally fine. They grow in sand. That's actually kind of quite natural to what their soil would look like in nature. And so you can just increase the level of sand as well. Awesome. So here's a succulent terrarium. And lastly, I want to show you a little surprise. I actually made a tropical one too, just yesterday. This is a smaller version with just, 4 plants in it. So Fittonia, a Swedish ivy, a spider plant. I want to show you guys this because one of the most important thing about plant care before we go is to be honest about what you can provide to your plants, because I said the most important thing about plant care is going to be what you can provide for them, what they need, right? It's not about you, it's about the plants. And these guys need full light, a ton of sun. If you can't provide that, you shouldn't get a succulent. I'm just being straight honest with you, because they won't thrive and you won't be happy watching them struggle. So what I recommend is, traditionally, terrariums are obviously tropical ones. So historically, they were made completely sealed up. It was made for moss, fragile orchids, and ferns that needs to be protected from their outside non-tropical regions like London. And so that's why you can make a tropical terrarium if you want. You can also do an open terrarium for tropical ones because it's basically just a planter at that point. But if it's closed off, it will work really well for them too because it will keep the humidity high, and they really love that. Succulent terrariums, mentioning the closed and open, you want to keep it open because you want air circulation. You don't want humidity to be trapped in here. You want to keep it dry. And so, yeah, that's pretty much all. Here's a big rock I found on the way here that I literally just threw in this morning just to add a little bit. Throw your tchotchkes in, have fun, put a little miniature person, make it a little wild jungle. Right.
Great. So you can get the sand and the rocks and the cacti mix online.
Thank you. So yeah, small sandbags, small lava rocks or big lava rock bags for all of your planter needs. Cacti mix, we also have potting mix as well online. So if you want to purchase these guys, I always use these. It's really nice formula, super organic. It's actually just really nice stuff. And so I hope you guys grab one of these for your project. If not, obviously support your local nurseries as well. And just make sure that they are sealed and made from a reputable source. All right. Thank you so much, guys. See you later.